Hey, Dan here. If you're new to the channel, I am an ENFP, and I was recently talking to a friend of mine, Tara, who is an INFP and an author. And we were talking about the whole starving artist. Do you quit your job and write full time, or what's the right approach? And a lot of really interesting things came up that I'd love to sort of sum up for you here in this video. The first thing she said is that a lot of the advice out there says, keep your day job and write on the side is the only way to do it. But that the sense is a lot of the people giving that advice are probably not INFPs or ENFPs. They're more like a TJ type, and the type of writing they're doing, they're maybe not the most passionate about. You know, they picked a certain niche like dark fantasy or romance novels, and they're just cranking stuff out. And there's nothing wrong with that at all, of course. But that the level of maybe passion and enthusiasm and mental energy required to go all in isn't needed for them, right? And this is very important. This is one of the reasons I really started this channel, is a lot of advice out there sounds good, but it's not really good for me or maybe for you, because it works for a totally different type of person. And you can waste a lot of years or decades of your life following the advice of an ENTJ if you are an INFP, for example. One of the things Tara was telling me about is that cycle of getting a job and then saving money, and then you quit and you say, okay, I'm going to do this all out, the artistic pursuit, in her case it's writing, and then you're not maybe making as much progress, or you don't have money coming in yet, and then you get a job again, and you look back and quite a few years potentially could be burned up in that back and forth. And, you know, what is the right approach for it? And she said something very wise, which really explained it well, is you need to compromise. That you can't have both things. And what that compromise is between is comfort and passion, essentially. If you've got used to your 600 thread count sheets, if you have to have a car because you just have to, if you need your space at home, then your compromise is having to work crazy hours at a job and then come home and write. Or in the morning, get up early and write. That's your compromise. You can't have both in this world. It's really that simple. And if you decide that you're going to choose instead to give up on the comfort and place your creative pursuit first, that your voice, your message, your creativity comes first, then you're going to lose some comfort. And that's going to free up a ton of time. Tara actually met some friends of mine, Nella and Gaetan, from Paris. Well, she's from Czech, he's from Paris, and they are both artists. And he is a full-time musician, she's a full-time painter. And I hope they're okay with me sharing this. They live in a Paris apartment, which are already tremendously small. And as artists, they're not going to have the biggest place, right? They could both go get jobs. They're super smart people. They could get a job, get a bigger apartment. They could leave Paris for all they, mattered as well. But they don't, because Paris is where they want to be for the inspiration and the community. And if they want to dedicate the majority of their time to their art, they can't be living in a 2-bedroom overlooking the park. That's how things work. And actually, he was telling me how at one point he lived in a squatter flat. Now, if you're in North America, you might not be too familiar with these. Europe has some interesting real estate laws. It varies by country, but in a lot of countries, if you basically update or change an abandoned property or just unoccupied property, you can end up taking it over for quite a while things get tied up in court. So he told me he lived in this they're called artist squats. And it was him and dozens of artists, and it was a commercial building. And they actually installed like showers and all these different things. And he lived there for, I think, a year. And it was probably not the most comfortable situation. He told me he eventually moved out, not because of the physical comfort, but just, you can imagine living with a lot of artists, probably somewhat emotional people, probably a lot of drama with it. But that's called a sacrifice, right? That's called making a choice of, I'm going to live in a squat building because my creativity and my art is more important to me than my comfort. And you ultimately have to make that choice, and it's up to you what is really going to be the right thing. If you have a message, if you have something that is so important to you that it occupies your every thought, then I would probably lean on the side of giving up comfort and going all in. That's the way I've been. I've never worked a job while starting a business. I always quit and go all in. And I shouldn't say always because it's sort of one time and then I just kept going with businesses. But I personally always went all in because I need that all-encompassing mental energy. I wake up thinking about it, I go to bed thinking about it, and it occupies everything for me. Some people, maybe not, but for me, I've always thought what I'm trying to do is more important than my comfort, and that has meant at many times not being able to go to some friends' weddings, having limited food options, going to Starbucks with my own coffee from home, hidden in a mug because I couldn't afford Starbucks, but it ultimately worked out. So you've got to ask yourself that. You can get my bias from this video, of course. And I will say at the end here, there is a third option, which we did touch on, which is getting a job and just working crazy hours and saving as much money as you can, and then finding a way to live cheap and go full-time with your artistic pursuit or your entrepreneurial pursuit until you make it work. And that can work as well. I personally don't love that because it's delaying what you really want to do. So in my case, even when my bank account has not been in a great place, I've always just went for it because I'm an impatient person. Maybe it's ADD, maybe it's being an ENFP, but I'm like, I don't want to wait a year and save money to do the thing I want to do. I want to do it now. But that does bring with it a certain level of stress and discomfort. So ultimately, that choice is up to you. In the comments below, I'd love to know what is your calling? What is the thing that you are already doing or want to be doing very soon? Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video soon. And if you are an ENFP or INFP, I'll include links to some free training I have to help you make the most of your personality type and create the most awesome life possible, including overcoming fear and really embracing your strengths and just going for it. If you're an ENFP, it's dreamsaroundtheworld.com/ENFP training. Catch you in the next video soon.